Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me in the back? All right, you're talking to a trial lawyer, so if I get too loud back, you'll have to let me know. But otherwise, I've never been told I have a projection issue, but if this stops working, let me know, and I will abandon ship and try again. My name is HetalDoshi. I am running for Attorney General of Colorado. Thank you for that incredibly kind introduction, and what a packed house. I'm really honored to be here tonight. For those of you that I saw coming in here earlier that might have noticed this bright red eye on my left side, let's just say I got into a little fight about democracy on the way over here, and you should see the other guy. All joking aside, I don't have pink eye. There's nothing else wrong with me. I do have a little bit of an ocular migraine, so please don't be freaked out by it when I shake your hand afterward. I just, in the time of cold and flu season, I just want to be fully transparent about what's going on. So let's get down to business. I'm HetalDoshi, and I am running for Attorney General. I am a first-time political candidate, and I am someone whose name you have probably never heard before, and there's a good reason for that. I'm a 20-year practicing lawyer, and I just stepped down from the Department of Justice after nearly 11 years of service, the last 3 of which I was a presidential White House appointee for the Biden-Harris administration leading the Department of Justice. And I'm going to get to my work there in a minute. But back when the Department of Justice had norms, traditions, and integrity around the people that did their public corruption work, which is what I did, we weren't in spaces like this because it was important to make sure that our justice system was far removed from partisan politics. Not true anymore, but that's where I was for the last 11 years, doing the work of the people of Colorado and the people of the United States in terms of having a fair, just, and transparent system for the Department of Justice. So, that out of the way, let me get to a little bit about who I am. I'm a first-generation American, the proud daughter of immigrants, and someone who chose Colorado as her home over 13 and a half years ago now. I am someone who my dad had a job as a chemical engineer who worked on nuclear power plants. Those of you who were paying attention in the 1980s know that there was a lot of instability in that industry. And so we moved around a lot. And the 13 and a half years I've spent in Colorado is the most period of time I've spent in any other place in my entire life. And so Colorado is home. But in that time growing up, I grew up all over the Deep South. I went to 3 different kindergartens, and I lived in places like Texas, South Georgia, and I am the proud product of a public education from 6th grade to 12th grade in the state of Alabama. And I will tell you that growing up in the cradle of the civil rights movement, as a woman, a brown woman with a funny name like HetalDoshi, was transformative in terms of my value system and my belief about the importance of law in terms of shaping our communities and building our democracy and being the backbone of protecting people like my family and your family. And so I am a first generation of a lot of different things. First lawyer in the family, first of all, as I said, I met a lot of firsts for my family, and I will tell you it was highly improbable that someone with my background and experience ended up across the table from the Fortune 50 CEOs that I went after when I was a prosecutor with the Justice Department. I'm talking about the CEOs of Google, Apple, Ticketmaster, RealPage. Those were my cases when I was at the Justice Department. And so I moved around a lot, and first lawyer, I started my career in private practice, and I thought I was really cool because I got a business card and a legal assistant and a dictaphone. I thought I had made it. That's what I'd seen on TV. And as it turns out, I got really good experience in the private sector. I understand and appreciate how the business community operates, how to advise a board, how to think about compliance, but that work did not bring me the personal satisfaction and joy that I knew was possible in the practice of law. And so when I moved to Colorado, John Walsh, now the Denver DA, gave me the opportunity of a lifetime when he hired me to be an assistant United States attorney for the Department of Justice right here in Denver. And I was actually brought in to lead the big cases against the financial institutions that caused the 2008 global financial crisis. So you are looking at the lead prosecutor in United States versus Credit Suisse, in United States versus HSBC. Thank you. I will tell you, this is one of the virtues of service that a young lawyer in her 30s could say, I was the lead prosecutor at that time, lead prosecutor in those cases. The thing that I learned from those cases and being an assistant U.S. attorney in the very beginning was the transformative power of government, and specifically the law in terms of shaping our communities. So in those cases and through those cases, I returned billions of dollars, billions with a B, to the American people and to the public fisc, and we got tens of millions of dollars in consumer relief right here in Colorado to deal with the housing crisis and affordable housing issues that were presented by the global financial crisis. That right there got me hooked. I understood what I could do as a public servant that used the law and was the prosecutor that advocated for people in terms of making sure that the structural integrity of the market, that those who had the greatest amount of power and resources didn't exploit and abuse the system in ways that hurt working families. Over my time as an assistant U.S. attorney, I did public corruption work, I was a civil rights prosecutor, and I prosecuted white-collar crimes. And as I alluded to when I began my remarks here tonight, at the beginning of the Biden-Harris administration, I got an unexpected phone call. And it was from Washington, D.C., asking me if I would come resign my career civil service appointment and become a political appointee for the Biden-Harris administration to lead the antitrust division's civil and criminal litigation. 800 lawyers, PhD economists, and professional staff, $250 million budget. And my response was, super flattered, thank you for asking, but I live in Colorado and I'm unwilling to move to Washington, D.C. I got the sense that that was an unusual response, but I share that with you to tell you how meaningful my chosen home is to me and how committed I am to Colorado. And so once they got over the surprise that I wasn't immediately saying yes, we worked it out and I got to live in Colorado and have this incredible opportunity to lead the most transformative era of consumer protection and antitrust enforcement in American history. And so United States versus Google, not once, but twice we beat them in court. United States versus Apple, United States versus Ticketmaster, RealPage, all of the criminal cases that we filed. For the first time in American history, the Department of Justice blocked a merger of two companies, not on the theory that prices would go up after the merger, but that wages would go down. For the first time in American history under my leadership, we actually sustained a criminal conviction when two competitive companies that employed home health nurses colluded together to say, hey, don't pay more than $15 an hour. We had tried that theory of liability, tried, and we had lost a few times, and there were a lot of op-eds and a lot of ink spilled about how the Justice Department has lost its mind, it's too progressive, it's too populist, they're never going to win. Guess what? We proved them wrong. And a jury, middle of last year, finally convicted, and the person, the executive who colluded in that circumstance, is now serving a 60-month jail sentence. So, those were some of the high moments, but there were low moments. January 10th of last year was my last day at the Justice Department. I resigned after nearly more than a decade of service. I got the opportunity for more than 10 years to stand up in court every single day and say, HetalDoshi for the United States of America. And I just want you to know my voice will always catch when I say that. It never lost its luster. I faced the American flag every time I said it. It meant something to me. I didn't know what the next chapter of my professional life would look like, but after I resigned and walked out of the Robert F. Kennedy building in Washington, D.C. for the last time last January, I promised my husband I would take a few months off to think about what was next. And as I saw the astonishing speed and ferocity with which the Justice Department dismantled every piece of consumer protection, civil rights, election law, all of the things that I had just spent all this time building, right? I saw that be dismantled in probably 90 days in terms of the Civil Rights Division. 75% of that workforce walked out of that building in the first 90 days. Think about that work. That's the work of integrating our schools, holding our police departments accountable, making sure disability access is provided, education rights. That work is not getting done. At the same time that I saw the speed with which all these consumer protection and democracy building and rule of law pieces were dismantled, I also saw that the most powerful institutions in American society bent a knee. They were scared to take on this administration, and suddenly it was one group of people that were holding the line to take on Donald Trump and this administration's reckless assault on rule of law and democracy, and that was state attorney generals. When I saw that, We have a great Attorney General here in Colorado, and I am looking to build on that and provide some continuity, and I'd love to answer any questions about that if there's time for that. But when you think about what state AGs are doing in this particular moment, this is not a moment where AGs can be figureheads or politicians and use this as like a stepping stone to another career. This moment requires expertise in the hands of those AGs, because those AGs are the ones that are taking the fight to the courts. And the theater of battle in this moment is not MSNBC, it's the courtroom. And so I remember talking to my parents and saying, I'm thinking about doing something crazy. I'm thinking about running for office. And I said, I'm a brown woman with a funny name. People told me that this isn't within the realm of possibility for you, Hetal. And I responded back to say, it takes a Fed to beat the feds, and I am that Fed. I am the only one in this race who has that federal expertise. I am the only one in the Democratic primary that has both civil and criminal expertise, which both of those things the Attorney General's office does. I am the one that has taken on these big fights. These are not political talking points for me. I have a track record. And so when I think about the future in terms of what my vision and mandate for that office would be, I just want to leave you, or I want to share these three things. The first is, it's table stakes to say we're going to take on Donald Trump. All of the candidates are going to say that. That's what we should do. That's an important piece of the job. And you better believe that I'm going to be relentless in making sure that when he comes out to fight the people of Colorado, that we're in court and that we're going to win. There is no question about that. And that means when he dismantles education funding, funding for hospitals, for science, for atmospheric research, for making sure our land, water, and air regulations that have been rolled back at the federal level have a state counterpart. Don't you worry. The next Attorney General of the state of Colorado will be a voice, a leader amongst the Democratic coalitions of AGs across the country to say, not today, not ever, Donald Trump. But I am also someone who believes that if we spend all of our time being anti-Trump, we are missing the point. What are we for? What happens on the other side of a Trump presidency? Because there will be another side to the Trump presidency. What is the society that we want to build? And so I am here to tell you, and this is maybe a controversial hot take, but I actually don't think in this moment that the battle that we are waging in America is between the left and the right. I think the battle of this moment is between those who have power and those who do not. And there is nothing that gets me out of bed faster in the morning than thinking about how we use all of the tools, power, and resources that we have to fight a well-financed, formidable adversary to build that kind of society where healthcare costs aren't increasing by 45%, where people aren't financing their groceries through buy now, pay later programs, where our education funding isn't being cut, where we're not being able to invest in housing, affordable housing, and all the different ways that it takes, and not letting algorithms and robots control that. That's the better society that, as Attorney General, I will fight every day to make sure that we all have in Colorado. And then the third piece of what my vision includes as Attorney General of Colorado is making sure that all of the individual liberties and our freedoms that we take for granted here in Colorado because we have such a robust, wonderful system are not compromised going forward. And that means not just accepting in a crouch position what the Trump administration is bringing to us, but turning around and making sure that whether it's through legislation or court action, that we fight for our individual liberties and our way of life, and we make sure that we say to Donald Trump that the America that Colorado recognizes is an America where a brown woman with a funny name can be the Attorney General of this state. And so the last thing that I would like to share with you, and thank you for your indulgence and incredible support here this evening, is, look, I have a lot of respect and admiration for the field of candidates in this race. There are really, really great options. And I will tell you that all of us have our own path to how we ended up raising our hand and saying, put me in, coach. I told you that I talked to my parents about making the decision to run for office, and the thing that struck me the most when I think about their story and how they ended up in America and how they chose America, much like I chose Colorado, and it is this. My parents could not have been prouder for the 11 years that I stood up in court and represented the people of the United States. They came to my farewell party at the Justice Department, and it's, like any parents, you believe in the exceptionalism of your own kids, right? But what I will say to you is that this fight and this race is intensely personal for me. And the reason that is because as we are seeing in Minneapolis and in cities across this country, this administration is trying to rewrite and redefine what it means to be an American and to be a patriot in a way that excludes people like me and my family. And I'm not going to have it. And so I will tell you that with every part of my being and every legal skill and expertise that I have, I will bring that to bear every day, because I think that while for me this fight is personal because of my own personal story, I know this fight is personal for you too. I'd be honored to have your support.
Is that on? Yeah. What does the AG do?
Great question. The Attorney General of Colorado is your lawyer, people's lawyer. And so it would maybe surprise you to hear that there are more than 700 public servants that serve in that office, more than 400 of which are lawyers. There are criminal lawyers in that office that prosecute crimes in partnership with DA's offices or in multi-jurisdictional cases. Then there are civil lawyers in that office. And the civil lawyers are divided into a bunch of different specialties: civil rights, higher education, environmental law, consumer protection, workers' rights. They do a lot of that, and that's called affirmative work. That means that the state of Colorado is often suing other entities, businesses, or otherwise merger challenges like Kroger Albertsons, right? But in addition to that, the Attorney General of Colorado also defends the state of Colorado and defends all of our agencies and institutions, right? And so when you think about the Department of Corrections being sued, that's something where your Attorney General is representing the people and making a smart, thoughtful decision about how to represent the state in those difficult subjects. And so, in short, the Attorney General of Colorado is your lawyer, the people's lawyer. They are your advocate in court, and they work with a three-level system. There's the federal government, the state government, and the local municipalities and local governments. And the AG is the critical voice in terms of melding all of that together in the courts of Colorado.
What do you think the state of Colorado and/or Denver could be doing now to preempt the ICE presence?
How much time do you have? There's a long answer to this question, but let me start here, which is to say, as a Fed, I spent years working with federal law enforcement agents. Most were really great, not all, but most. And I was really proud of that work, and most of those folks went to work because they took an oath to swear to protect and defend the Constitution, to protect the people of the United States. That is not respectfully what I am seeing across the board with respect to the current situation. And so in terms of, Colorado does not, just like any other jurisdiction, California, Minnesota, I don't know if you saw AG Ellison just filed a lawsuit, I think yesterday or today, suing the federal government and saying, enough, get out of our state. Right? There are options that the state of Colorado has to follow that blueprint. AG Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota, is someone I have worked with before in my prior job, and that's something that I should also share, that in terms of dealing with ICE or any federal encroachment, violation of laws, that's a place where meaningful partnership amongst states is critical. And I am someone who uniquely will come into this role with relationships to build those partnerships. So the answer to the ICE question is, we have to make sure that we fight back from a budget perspective, because ICE's budget is coming up for renewal January 30th, right? And so that's a legislative response. But in addition to that, we have to think about ways to hold the individual officers accountable through investigations. And so that is a place where I have publicly called for the fact that the Attorney General of Minnesota is being excluded from a federal investigation. And now my former colleagues at the Civil Rights Division are also being excluded from that investigation. That is a hugely consequential problem, and it takes a lawyer's lawyer to be able to navigate those problems, and that's why I think I'd be the right person to handle ICE.
In a related question, how would you keep the public informed about who was being retained and deported by ICE? Did you have a role in that?
I'm not sure that the Attorney General has a proper role in terms of individual identities. I think there are probably some privacy concerns and things like that. What I do think is really interesting about this particular moment, and I say interesting more in the sad way as opposed to the happy way, which is we are engaged as a citizenry in terms of bringing, that old expression, sunlight is the best disinfectant. And so if you think about, I spend a little bit too much time doom scrolling. I don't know if that's your advice, but maybe you have advice on how I can stop doing that. At the same time, though, in all of my consumption of social media and news sources, I think to speak to this question about transparency about who's being deported and who's not, we have a ton of public reporting around categories of people that are being targeted and types of places where these types of initiatives and raids are occurring. And that's incredibly important for a population to be able to fight back and to advocate through their elected officials.
There's a question about, are all the candidates for AG attorneys, and they are?
Yes.
How do you feel about commuting the sentence for Tina Peters?
You're talking to a former criminal prosecutor. I'll give you 3 guesses. The first 2 don't count. Look, the too, as the kids would say, the too long didn't read is I oppose it.
Does everybody know who I'm talking about? Okay. This is a very informed group, I want to say very proudly.
I could tell. Y'all were really excited about antitrust. I don't always get that response. I'll tell you that. It's not always a banger. But yeah, so I think commutation of Tina Peters' sentence would be an injustice for the people of Colorado. I think it casts aside the considered judgment of 12 people in a jury that was a jury of her peers, and I think it also casts aside the expertise and time and investment of the court that made a thoughtful decision to sentence this defendant.
Did she leave it? We have a sec. Did she leave any stone unturned? Any question? Let me 2 questions, and then I need to introduce our state representative quickly.
How do we reach you? How do we reach your campaign?
Thank you. I love this question. What is your name?
Sally Ann Hoffman.
Sally Ann, thank you very much for that question. You might have a Southern parent with a double name, Sally name, no? Sally Ann, no? William McCall, come on up. This is William. He is a member of my team, and so we have business cards that have my email address on them. Please come up. We've got a sign-in sheet. We would love to have you join for future events. We're going to march at the parade on Monday. I'm volunteering over the weekend at the Denver Rescue Mission. Would love to have you join me. So please reach out to either Will or come grab any of our literature. Thank you so much for that question, Sally Ann. You had a question?
Right. This more technical question, I apologize. I was at the opening of the state legislature today, and the big challenge there, I think, is the budget. Do you see any break in TABOR, the taxpayers' application thing, some way of freeing up money for us?
You might want Sean Camacho to answer that when he comes up. I'll let her off the hook.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I would never presume to speak for Sean. I will tell you this. I think that there is often a wide chasm between ideas that are really great in theory and then the execution pain. And I think a lot of people are about to feel that execution pain. And I think that is a way in which people get enlisted in saying, that thing that we thought was a really, really great idea, like maybe it's not working out and serving us particularly well in this moment.
Tom? The last one, yeah. No, back.
Okay. Whoever runs the Facebook page this group, will you please put her information on there?
Oh, yeah. We'll do that with all the candidates.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Okay, last quick.
I
I have a question about the Montana plan about
Mm-hmm.
the powers of corporations. Do you have some thoughts to share with us on that?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly interesting, and I love that it comes from a.
You want to repeat, you're asking about the Montana plan? Yeah, you want to explain it?
So let me start here. The Montana Plan is an innovative idea to deal with Citizens United to untether, to unlink the idea of free speech from corporations by saying, well, what if state codes didn't call corporations people, right? Then you can't have a First Amendment right. And the other sort of smart thing that Montana is thinking through is that states uniquely get to control the definition of what it means to be a person in that particular state. And so here are a couple of things. I think the Montana plan is incredibly interesting. I think there are going to be a ton of court challenges to it. What I am really excited about is revisiting a lot of baked-in assumptions around how we set up our corporate code to do something creative like this, because I think that Citizens United is one of the most dangerous decisions that has brought us to where we are today. So I am all in for creative solutions to that. The one thing that I think that we need to be really careful of, and this is something that I've seen at the Justice Department in a variety of different areas where we would advise the Hill on various legislative fixes that maybe were coming down the pike, it's the law of unintended consequences, right? And so I, as someone who has sued a lot of corporations and won against a lot of corporations, want to make sure that if we unlink a corporation as a person, that somehow the protections that we have are corporations to be sued and to sue, and our ability to collect judgments against corporations, and all of those things are unaffected by that change. And so I think that's the big thing that Montana will have to figure out, putting aside the legal challenges that will come as well.
Thank you so much. And I got to get your name right. Is it Hetal?
Yeah, well, I promise we didn't set this up, but I will tell you one quick anecdote, which is on the campaign trail, I've gotten a lot of feedback that my name is too hard, and someone suggested maybe I should anglicize it and change my name to Heather for purposes of a political life. Yeah, I had a slightly more off-color version of response to that, but yes, that has been something that's been suggested. And so instead of changing the name that my parents gave me that reflects my heritage and identity, instead, we are going to be rolling out some fun swag and campaign material that says, put the Hetal to the metal for Colorado.
Got it. It's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.